It's Thursday night, and the mood is right. We're going to have some fun, show you how it's done. This is The Sweat.
Getting you ready for a relatively small slate in baseball tonight, but the good news, Rays all-star pitcher Blake Snell is here with us, taking us through his fantasy landscape.
All right, we're also in football mode. Our experts will share with you their targets for tonight's Showdown contest.
WNBA and Xfinity, check it off the list. This is The Sweat.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for living your best life with us right here on The Sweat. She is Jessie. I'm a mustacheless Emerson now, and with lots of day baseball being played, that leaves not a lot of baseball for when the sun goes down.
Just 4 games on the evening slate. We've got Gary and Thorne and Matt LaMarca here to talk about it. Guys, let's start with some risk-reward narratives. So the Braves and Ronald Acuna Jr. faced the Marlins. Last time these two faced each other, there was like a little issue. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, a little bit. Miami's Jose Urena beamed the Atlanta rookie on the first pitch of the game. So how risky of a start is the ATL's Sean Newcomb tonight, considering retaliation? It might be on the mind. What do you think, Garion?
I mean, he's a risky play probably just because he hasn't pitched well since the calendar's turned to July. I feel like not often do we get to look at DFS baseball from a real-life perspective with the real-life ramifications of this stuff. But, you know, the Phillies won this afternoon. They're only 2.5 games back of the Braves. I don't think they're going to send Sean Newcomb out there, especially early on in this game, looking for vengeance. Now, if this thing gets out of control, which it might because Miami's got some sort of Frankenstein combination of Hernandez for like 70 pitches, then a really terrible bullpen for probably 5 or 6 innings in this contest. The Braves are up like 6, 7, 8 runs. Yeah, maybe some funny stuff happens. I mean, one name I want to throw out here, Chad Sobotka. He throws about 98 miles per hour and is really just called up from the minors. Maybe this guy ends up throwing at somebody on the Marlins, but who are you even throwing at on the Marlins? Like, there's a lot of questions here. So I think the real-life struggles of Sean Newcomb are more worrisome to me than the fact that he might get tossed from this game.
Hey, they beat the Yankees last night.
That's
Just
true.
saying.
Matt, what about you? How do you feel about Newcomb? Do you think he's a risky start?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he's risky, but more just because he hasn't been a very good pitcher. I mean, if you look at his StatCast data, he's allowed a hard hit rate of 57% over his past 2 starts, which is just awful. Pitchers with comparable marks have historically struggled to hit salary-based expectations. So I think if you couple that with, the unwritten rules of baseball, which I have no idea if they're going to throw at him or not. I don't think anybody can say with absolute certainty that they will or won't. I think that there's enough between those two things that, he's got risk tonight.
Yeah, as for, Acuna, he did have that streak when he got beamed. He was looking for his 6th straight game of the home run. So as for the rookie sensation here, though, going yard last night, is he a lock for a big evening against Hernandez here, Matt?
I love Acuna. I mean, the revenge narrative is one thing. I mean, I definitely think that the Braves bats are going to be motivated, but even without that, the guy is just an absolute stud. He's crushed right-handers this year, posting a 395 WOBA and 280 ISO, and he's arguably got the best StatCast data on the slate over his past 15 days. Average exit velocity of 98 miles an hour and a 62% hard hit rate. So just really, really good numbers from a super talented hitter who, is going to obviously be motivated to go and do his best tonight.
Gary, and I see you nodding your head yes, so just go ahead and explain to me why you like this kid so much.
I mean, in a vacuum, sure. I love Acuna tonight. I mean, a 485 WOBA in the month of August, as Matt was talking about. If you want to stretch it past 15 days to the entire month of August, 58.1% hard contact rate. And that Marlins bullpen, which will be heavily involved in this contest tonight, they have an ERA of 5 since the All-Star break. So all the things kind of come together here for a nice night from Acuna. But I don't know, when I was building my lineups tonight, and again, 4-game slates, there's a lot of strange strategy that kind of goes into this stuff. I feel like I was kind of cherry picking more from the mid-tier of the Braves than I was from the 5,500 plus Acuna. I mean, it's a tough salary to fit in there tonight. He's really on a tier of his own when it comes to pricing.
All right, what about Royals pitcher Danny Duffy? He's returning from injury to face the Rays in Tampa Bay tonight. maybe not on a limited pitch count. We know he's good enough, but is he worth the risk, Garion?
No, I don't think I'll have too many shares of Duffy tonight. I mean, there was a time about, I want to say 5-6 weeks ago, where his fastball velocity had spiked. And it was really what led to his turnaround. And we saw those numbers kind of trend back down before he went on the DL. And maybe this DL stint will kind of help cure what ailed him in terms of that fastball. But considering that we don't quite know if there's going to be a pitch count tonight, we don't really know how they're going to treat him tonight, and the fact that the Rays aren't exactly a strikeout-heavy team. They're kind of in the middle of the pack in that regard. You know, they're not a powerful team either, but I think you look at particular guys on this slate, and, you know, I'm maybe more comfortable with the Cahills of the world. I'm probably more comfortable with the Glasnows of the world on the other side of this. And that's the thing, too. I truly feel like Glasnow is in a much better or much higher win expectancy standpoint tonight. So I'm probably more willing to pick on that side of the slate than I would be with Danny Duffy.
What about you, Matt? Danny Duffy, he could prove to be worth it, but are you going to risk it?
I think he's interesting. I mean, look, you have to play two pitchers tonight. He mentioned Glasnow and Cahill, but both of those guys are significantly more expensive than Duffy. And even though Tampa may not be a super strikeout-prone lineup, Duffy himself is a decent strikeout pitcher, at least compared to some of the other guys on this slate. So I think he's at least somewhat interesting at just 6,400. He doesn't have to pitch too deep into a game to pay off value at that salary.
All right, guys, need you to be quick on this one. Cole Hamels, 20-plus DK fantasy points in his last 4 games, only 1 earned run since joining the Cubs. Matt, you taking a shot on him this evening?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at Hamels' numbers outside of Globe Life Ballpark in Arlington, he's got a 2.33 ERA this season. So that's just really good. He was a really good pitcher who was trapped in an awful pitching situation. And now that he's escaped that, I think this guy is good to go for the rest of the year.
Garen, you going to roster him $10,400? You like someone else?
I'll have some exposure, but the two guys I mentioned, just Glasnow and Cahill, I think I'm more interested in those guys. I think for me, Hamels is more of a deterrent to play the Reds than he is someone I necessarily want to put in my lineup. And that somewhat comes down to strikeout expectancy. He's been amazing. 217 WOBA as a member of the Cubs, but we saw that last game. Low strikeout totals, 13 ground balls induced. That's great in real life, not so great in DFS. So some exposure, but I'll have more exposure to those other two guys in the top 3 pitchers.
All right, thank you guys. Hang tight because later on we're going to need 3 plays from Garion that he just hates tonight.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to 3 of them this evening. For now, though, we are joined by Rays All-Star pitcher Blake Snell, and this season repping the Rays in the All-Star game, a first for you, young man. So please tell us what that experience was like.
Being able to just be there with those guys, it was very exciting for me, and it was a time that I'll never forget. And it was just cool that I got to enjoy that with my family.
So you already had a career high in wins. So what adjustments did you make to help you reach all-star caliber?
I just think I was consistent in the way when I went out and pitched every day. Gave my team a chance to win, and we won a lot of those games, and as well as just limiting the damage. And I think that's what allowed me to portray a good case, I would say, to be an all-star.
Well, limiting the damage will always be a good thing for you.
Yeah.
Talking career milestones here, though, Bud. What do you remember from your first career start at Yankee Stadium back in 2016?
Honestly, not a lot. I remember walking out. I saw my family, and I was like, wow, it's crazy. But then I kind of like blacked out. I don't remember a lot about the game. I remember I saw my family after. I remember Gardner hit a walk-off home run to win the game for the Yankees. I remember I had a good curveball that day. But I really don't remember a lot of the game. It just went by very fast, but I was just excited that all my friends and family were able to come out and see me living out my dream for the first time.
Yeah, right on, man.
When the adrenaline's pumping, it's just like,
yeah,
it all goes dark.
It sounds like you do remember a lot, though, so good for you. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, okay, but June 27th, 2016, Why was this day significant? First career win against the Sox. What did that moment mean to you?
No, it meant a lot. I remember we scored a lot of runs that game. I had an okay game, but we scored a ridiculous amount of runs. And us winning that game was awesome. But I just remember we scored a lot that game. I pitched okay. I wasn't excited about how I did. I was happy my first win was against the Red Sox. That team is unreal. They were unreal then, they're unreal now. So to get my first one against them was pretty amazing.
And what do you know? You're going to face them again on Sunday. Best team in baseball right now. As you mentioned, they're unreal. So what goes through your mind ahead of a game like this against, arguably a World Series favorite right now?
Yeah, just got to attack the zone, got to be in the zone. My mindset is they got to hit me, and I got to pitch my game to beat them. I got to be pretty sound. That lineup, I mean, you have the two best hitters in the league on one team. It's going to be tough. But then when you have the supporting cast that they do, it makes it tough because that lineup 1 through 9 is very special. I think that team in general is just very special. But the lineup itself, you got to be as close to perfect as you can be with just your game plan and approach. And if you execute it, you're always going to have a great chance to win the ball game. But against them, they really capitalize a lot on mistakes, and they're very good at continuing to follow up on hit after hit after hit. So you got to limit the damage, you got to limit what they can do, and if you just execute the game plan perfectly, it's going to be a good game, obviously.
Who's the toughest hitter that you've faced in your career so far?
I'd say the toughest was probably Big Papi.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
a lefty, which is tip of the cap to him. I'd say the smartest hitter I faced was Carlos Beltran. I saw him set me up and hit a home run off me, and I'll never forget it.
Wow.
I mean,
He was
are they like mind
Yeah, how
tricks
did he
with
do
you?
that?
he was sitting on a changeup, and I threw a couple heaters in, and he like kind of acted like surprised to it, and then he didn't swing or anything, but he just kind of like it didn't bother him. Then I throw a changeup after I just threw so I went 2 fastballs in, fastball away. It was a 1-2 count, and I throw a changeup, and he hits a home run, and I just started laughing. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this guy's unreal.
The attention to
I
detail
thought
that
changeups to him to get him out. So for him to be able to just be like, nope, send changeup, home run. Yeah, I was just like, wow, this guy is special.
when was that at bat?
He was with Houston, so we played Houston here.
Yeah, okay. Good. It's incredible. The attention to
Yeah.
detail that like
That
these
you remember
professional
that.
athletes
Yeah.
have.
It was his second at bat, so
Wow.
yeah, I
And
was pretty upset, but I wasn't upset because of how smart he was to just adapt to that so quickly.
Do you remember the precise time of that at bat?
It's probably around 2. I mean, he's probably batting like 5th or 6th. So I'd probably say it was a 1 o'clock game if I'm certain. I'd say about an hour into the game.
Okay. So about 2:10ish. Good
Yeah.
stuff. I just wanted to make sure you could remember that. Before we get you out of here though, what are some like personal and maybe team goals about a month plus left of the season?
Well, I think we can make the playoffs. So I think we keep pitching the way we're pitching, and the bats are coming around right now. If we get hot right now, which I think we are, and we can push through this last month and change, I think we have an opportunity to just play meaningful games for the whole season. That's all I care about. As long as we can play meaningful games for the full 162 and have a chance of getting in the playoffs, which I think we really do. That's just all I really care about right now. Personal goals, I always keep them to myself. I'm more focused on Lord.
Hey, you're still alive.
Good.
You're alive.
So, yeah, my team goals and just seeing what we can do as a team and make a playoff push, because this team's very talented, and I think we're starting to take off together.
Yeah, 10 games out of the wild card right now. Just how serious is that conversation in the clubhouse about making the playoffs?
We're not talking about it a lot, honestly. We're just playing. Everyone shows up, we have fun, and we're playing. But I really think that I don't think we'll talk about it much. I think we'll just continue to go and continue to just say we got to win these ball games. Every game matters, and try to really make this push to make the playoffs, because no one's talking about us, which is beautiful. We want to be that team that creeps in behind everybody. So hopefully we can be that team and push our way in somehow. But we got to win a lot of games against very good competition. So I'm excited to see what will happen, but that's all I'm focused on.
Well, Blake Snell, a.k.a. Snellzilla, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Second round of the WNBA playoffs. They arrive tonight. These are single elimination games, ladies and gentlemen. And we've got the best in the business to help you build a money-making lineup. We have Adam Levitan and Maria Marino on with us right now. Let's talk your top targets for the night, Adam. Who are you paying up for?
Yeah, so Candace Parker was sick last game, and a lot of people are just going to click on the game log and see she really struggled, only played 30 minutes. I think she's feeling better. I hope she's feeling better. I'd like to get confirmation before tip, but assuming so, she has a really good spot against the Washington team that has struggled a bit defensively, particularly up front, and Candace Parker, when healthy and motivated, is one of the best stat sheet stuffers in the entire WNBA. I think she's a slightly better player than Diana Taurasi, and I think she might even be a slightly better play than Elena Delle Donne, who I like also.
What direction are you going here, Eminem?
Oh, wow. With the Eminem already, I guess we're on nickname basis.
Yeah, we're like we're best friends. You just don't know it yet.
I got it. Well, look, Adam makes some great points about Candace Parker, and I really like her tonight, too. There are more weapons on that LA team, so you don't know necessarily what's going to happen with Nneka Ogwumike and who she's going to be guarding. You don't know what's going to happen with Chelsea Gray. But Elena Delle Donne, like, she is the primary threat on Washington. Washington goes the way Elena Delle Donne goes. And I just feel like I would feel more comfortable paying for her than I would for Candace Parker, even though I do think Candace Parker is going to have a bounce back. But I also agree with, Delle Donne or Parker might be the best, like, big spends on the entire slate.
Ooh.
Okay, we're talking big spends, but now let's change gears a little bit. What about which player brings the best value tonight? Who do you think it's going to be, Maria?
So talking like real cheap, I actually think somebody that you might be able to throw in there and then allow you to spend big on some other areas would be Aerial Powers of Washington. She's averaging more than 16 fantasy points in her last 4 games. She had a double-double last time against LA, and really at the price, as long as you're getting double-digit fantasy points, it's a good steal, and I feel good about that happening.
Adam, what about you? Who is your value play of the night?
Yeah, I think once the playoffs hit, teams really condense their rotations, and it's harder for me to trust bench players. So I'm looking for starters when I go cheap, and Elena Beard really sticks out. Certainly not a very good offensive player, just a defensive stopper. You're going to need some steals. You're going to need some rebounds, but at least we know that she's going to be out there for 30 to 35 minutes tonight in this game against Washington. So for me, if I'm spending in the 4Ks, it's likely going to be Elena Beard.
How about your slate-approved picks, your lock of the night? You're up first, Maria.
Yeah, my slate-approved pick tonight would be Raquana Williams of LA. I really like her. She's averaging 24 minutes and 21 fantasy points over her last 6 games. Highly efficient. Should be a great value at the price, considering she's only averaging about 12 fantasy points on the season as a whole, so her price tag is kind of based on that as opposed to what she's been doing lately.
Adam, you're up. Slate-approved.
Yeah, like Raquana and Williams recently inserted into the starting lineup, I think it makes a big difference. But for me, the slate-approved play is Alyssa Thomas, kind of like Draymond Green, where a lot of steals, a lot of rebounds, a lot of blocks. And I think that when Connecticut has had big games this year, important games, Alyssa Thomas has played 36, 37, sometimes even 38 minutes. And that's just a ton for someone priced in the 8Ks on DraftKings. So I like Alyssa Thomas a lot.
Adam Levitan, Maria Marino, thank you so much for your time. But let's shift gears now to golf, where we've got a massive matchup between Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson coming on Black Friday in November. And Pat Mayo has more right now.
The date's set on November 23rd over Thanksgiving weekend. The long-rumored Tiger Woods versus Phil Mickelson head-to-head is going down in Vegas. So what do we know? Well, it's going to be contested by match play rules. It'll be held at Shadow Creek Golf Course. The event got Phil to hire someone to start and run a Twitter account for him, which is going pretty well. And The $9 million first prize going to the winner won't be out of either one's bank account. That sum will be provided by Turner Sports, which bought the rights and will offer the event as a pay-per-view telecast. This all sounds kind of awful, but I really don't care. There's no way that I'm not watching. So, Tigers opened as a giant -190 favorite to Phil's +150, which is pretty sensible. However, a year ago, having Tiger as a fave to not withdraw from his first event would have been a massive favorite too. How'd that wager work out? Tiger's historically the better player, and he's having a far more consistent season despite Phil's WGC victory. But +150 is a big number on a straight-up golf matchup, especially for someone like Phil, who's quite familiar with the high-stakes head-to-head world of the golf course.
Alrighty, as far as the NFL preseason is concerned, it gets no bigger than week 3 with extensive playing time coming to those who will be busy on Sundays when games actually count.
So we got a couple people here to give us something to talk about.
We know for sure Reed is here.
Yeah, we know for sure that Reed is here. So
there
Reed,
he is. Wow,
hey.
Reed. Is that a black shirt?
No, it's blue.
Okay, sorry. Must just
okay.
be the
I
light.
have a lot of shirts in this area, but I'm not going to tell you which ones because then you will get a little too jealous.
Yeah, because
that's
most of those
true.
shirts hanging up are mine. Please do not wear another
You
one
wore
of my
red the other
shirts.
day, so Emerson is wearing red today. Now, Reed,
Good.
in Dallas, center Travis Frederick has been diagnosed with a rare neurological disorder, and the 4-time Pro Bowler isn't like on a sure timetable for a return.
Yeah, and then you've got right guard Zach Martin also injured. So I want to ask
Right.
you, how does this impact the fantasy value of guys like Zeke Elliott and Dak Prescott?
Sure. I mean, it affects them quite a bit, right? When you talk about an offensive line, and talked about this numerous times last year or last season in the injury show, there's so much correlation. And if you're looking at running backs, you have to undoubtedly look at the offensive line to see how they're producing. Look what happened to Washington last year when their offensive line was decimated. We'll just stay in that division. And their offensive line was just decimated with injuries. You look at those running backs, they were, no better than running back probably 25, 26, if that. And so now you look at the production of Ezekiel Elliott, who is automatically going to have 7, 8 guys in the box. Now you lose a guy like Travis Frederick, who in his 3 years, I think since 2014, has not allowed a sack against Prescott. This guy is a 4-time Pro Bowler. He is the QB of that offensive line. And now when you look at some of these other injuries, you're now looking at a guy in Prescott and in Ezekiel Elliott that do have a lot of question marks, and that entire offense having a ton of question marks. You bring in, some new guys in the draft, and you also bring in some journeymen on that line. But this was clearly one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. So this is definitely going to impact both. Now you're talking about Zeke, who was in season long, a guy who is going as the 4th running back and usually the 4th pick. I would suspect that a lot of people who are listening to this or potentially thinking about that 4th pick, maybe going Antonio Brown, maybe going Saquon Barkley, potentially Kamara. These are some of the guys you have to consider now with that offensive line being in question, especially with their health.
Edmonds here with us as well. Matt,
Hey.
real quick, what's going on, buddy? We're talking about in Dallas, they've got a couple big offensive line injuries with Travis Frederick and right guard Zach Martin. He's also out right now. So what's the impact of that on Zeke Elliott and Dak Prescott, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. As Reed said, it drops both of them down. And it's not just those two guys. It's the continuity along the offensive line and the fact that they are also thin. They have a rookie starting at left guard who's never played guard before. They have Lael Collins at right tackle, and he's underperformed at this point in his career. And they're losing 2 of the 3 strongest players on that line. So it is a pretty massive downgrade to Zeke and to Prescott. It's not as if that you drop Zeke down to pick 8 or anything like that. You still have to take him, with a premium 1st-round pick. It's just that you're going to feel like a lot less confident in the outcome that you might get out of him moving forward.
Well, and you have Tyron Smith too, who's considerably injured. He's limping. He's limping at practice, and this entire line. This is not what you want to hear. Going into the 3rd preseason game, which is your dress rehearsal, like you guys are talking about. So I just wanted to add that. But yeah, this line, Matt's right. This line, the continuity is a huge thing.
Now, Karin is also with us at this point.
Welcome,
we
man.
Got all the football guys here together. All right.
Hey.
All right, Karin, I'm going to let you take the lead on this next question. So in Kansas City, it looks like Sammy Watkins is starting to get into a rhythm with quarterback Pat Mahomes. So, Karin, what value could Watkins provide to fantasy owners?
I have no clue. and I say that with like education and research behind it. Like the guy didn't even have 600 receiving yards last year. So as sexy as he may look in the preseason, like these games don't count. I don't even think you get game checks for preseason games. I think those start rolling in like week 1, which is why I really don't pay preseason football that much attention because it really doesn't matter. I'm from Michigan. The Lions went 4-0 one preseason and then lost 16 straight in the regular season.
Oh,
so
I remember that.
Exactly. So as good as Sammy Watkins looks right now, until him and Mahomes do it on Sunday when they get checks, it doesn't really matter.
Matt, what about you? Do you think Watkins could be adding some value to fantasy owners?
Yeah, a little bit, but I think what you're ultimately hoping is that he's kind of a super version of Albert Wilson and Demarcus Robinson and all of those other guys wrapped into one. Like all of the targets that previously had been spread out through that offense, you're hoping that they all get consolidated into Sammy Watkins, which it makes sense if they would do that because they paid him so much and he is a very talented player. It doesn't make sense for them to have him on the offense not to give him the ball. So I think there is the possibility that he provides value, especially where he's being drafted, because he is the type of guy who it could be a high-end wide receiver too if he maximizes what they give him. It's just a question of whether he's going to give that targets. But given where you can get him in drafts, I think it's worth taking the risk.
Reed, what about you? Do you think that Watkins is going to be worth it?
Yeah, I'm going to dovetail a little bit off what Matt was saying. I do think there's value, but value is only perceived, right, if you're getting it at a discount. And Sammy Watkins was usually going in this 3rd or 4th round in drafts based off of his ceiling. Now we get him in the 7th or 8th draft or the position and round. I will pay for Sammy Watkins in that 8th round because of the talent. And Matt's right. And you look at preseason, I will watch, and the reason why I do like Sammy Watkins in those later rounds, and the reason why I am watching preseason is he's not getting much love in terms of the targets when they're playing their preseason games. Let him drop more. People are going to overdraft for Tyreek Hill. They're going to overdraft potentially for Mahomes. You're going to get Sammy Watkins in the potentially the 7th or 8th round, and he's a premium talent. The reason why Mahomes is going to Tyreek Hill is it's those under routes, it's those deep routes. But if you get Sammy Watkins as your potentially your wide receiver 2 or 3, I think there is some value there. So I'm, sort of in between where Karin and Matt were talking. I do think there's value, but only if you get him in that 7th or 8th round.
All right, guys, we're talking showdown targets for tonight. Eagles at the Browns. Who you got, Matt?
I like Nick Chubb. He's a guy who I think is going to get a decent amount of run, especially because Carlos Hyde is banged up with a shoulder injury. So they might not want to use him the way that they normally would. And that Browns offense has actually looked pretty decent. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Chubb.
Karin, who are you targeting for this showdown?
You know why the Browns offenses look pretty decent? Because HBO Hard Knocks has made me a sucker and made me fall more in love with Baker Mayfield than I already was. I mean, it's week 3. There's no need to really play Tyrod Taylor that much more because, we know what he is. So just why not let Bake be Bake and let's just watch number 6 go to work.
Dude, Hard Knocks has been phenomenal, by the way.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
really enjoyed it this season.
Very entertaining.
Great.
Reed, what about you? Who are you targeting for this showdown contest?
I like Zach Ertz. I mean, if you look at that Eagles offense, Corey Clement, Ajayi, the receivers and Alshon Jeffrey, everyone's hurt. And so Zach Ertz, if we can get him healthy, there's no reports that he's not playing. And so if he can get a half in, where else are you going to go? This guy he was only second to targets to Kelsey and second to touchdowns on Graham. And this guy is the number 1 option in Philadelphia right now. 9 targets in the first 4-game average last season. So give me Ertz.
Matt, who's your captain pick for tonight? People at home got to pay up a little more for him, but you get more points in return.
I'm going with Baker Mayfield. We've talked about how great he is. He's going to get, I think, at least a half of action or pretty close to that. In this 3rd week, you want to go with a guy who's going to be on the field as much as possible. They're going to be using him. They want to see what he can do with that offense. So, yeah, I'm going with him. I think he has the highest ceiling out of everyone on the slate.
Karin, you just talked about how much you wanted to see Baker play tonight, so you're obviously on board with that pick.
Yeah. Like, come on. Like, let's just let him play every snap tonight. Like, why not?
Reed, I know that's not your pick, but what do you think about Matt's selection of Baker?
I think it's good. I mean, you talk about a guy who has a high ceiling, but I'm going the other route. I'm going Tyrod, and I think he's going to have a nice connection with Jarvis. So bless him.
Yeah, and bless him. Nice, very good reference to Hard Knocks there. Reed, who was your guy?
Tyrod.
Okay, that was your captain pick.
Yeah, all right. How about slate approved time? Your lock of the night. Just give it to us. We got to move through these quick. So, Karin, who are you taking?
Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield.
I didn't see that
Matt,
coming.
what about you?
Either of these defenses, they're the only people who are actually going to give you points for all 4 quarters.
All right, and Reed?
Give me Wendell Smallwood. He's fighting for a job.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll see if all those picks play out. Now let's switch gears. Vroom, vroom, literally.
I see what you did there.
Gears. Do you like that?
That's really creative.
And
writing.
welcome in Pierce to talk to us about the Johnsonville, is that 180? Yeah. Part of the Xfinity series. So, yeah, exciting
Pierce,
stuff.
good
Pierce
to
looks
have
fancy.
you here.
Yes,
looking very nice today on this Thursday afternoon, buddy. Give us a driver you're willing to break the bank for, pay up for here.
The guy that I would pay for, James Davison, is a guy that probably no one out there has any idea who he is. And we get that when we go to these road course races. The guys kind of come out of the woodwork. He's one of them. He's a veteran road course racer. And he's in the 18 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, which means he's in the best, well, at least the top 3 car in the field. And last year he ran a couple road course races. He got a top 5 at Mid-Ohio. And he should have won this race last year. He led a quarter of the laps, but he got caught up in a wreck and it ruined his day. But James Davison is definitely a guy that no one knows, but I would play him.
All right, what about a driver who's going overlooked heading into this race?
Bill Elliott will probably go overlooked because he's a really old man and no one is going to trust him. It's just, he hasn't really been in a full-time ride in 10 years. It's hard to believe in Bill Elliott, but he's in the number 23 car for Gallagher Motorsports, and Gallagher Motorsports has been surprisingly good this year. They've got an alliance with Hendrick Motorsports that no one's talking about. AJ Allmendinger took this car to a second-place finish at Watkins Glen. Spencer Gallagher finished 8th in this car at Mid-Ohio, and Spencer Gallagher has been absolutely terrible at road courses over his career. So there's something in this car, so I would believe that Bill Elliott's got a chance, even though it's scary to roster him.
Too fast, too delirious, maybe. A little old. Okay.
Precisely.
Yeah.
I'm on board with you here. Hey, let's see. We got a lot of people at home who would like a value play here. So can you give us one of those?
Connor Daly isn't the cheapest guy on the board, but I don't really believe you need to go with the absolutely $5,000 cheap or $6,000 cheap guys. So Connor Daly will probably get it done because you're really looking for top 10s, and you can get some top 10s from the guys in the $7,000 range. And Connor Daly is going to be in the number 6 car for Roush, and he'll have a top-notch, decent car, good engine. He'll probably have the Roush Cup crew will be working on his team. He's a former IndyCar driver. He's not the greatest IndyCar driver, but at least he's used to running at these road courses. He's going to be competing against guys who are pretty much used to just turning left all the time. That's a bit of an advantage. He's pretty cheap this weekend.
All right, Pierce, well, before you get out of here, give us your slate-approved pick.
Austin Cindric is in the number 22 car for Penske, and it's been absolutely the best car in the Xfinity Series. It's been the best car at the road courses. Joey Logano won at Watkins Glen, and Austin Cindric should have won at Mid-Ohio. He led just about every single lap. He just lost the race late because he was able to go down pit road, and he had to compete against guys that had fresh tires. So Austin Cindric will probably win this race.
All right, Pierce. Good to talk some racing with you, buddy. We'll see you soon, okay?
See ya.
All right, well, baseball is back. I'm not sorry about it. Hello once again to Garion and Matt.
Now it's time for Thorn in My Side. Garion, it's your time to tell us who you hate and why. So who is your first thorn?
Let's talk about why I'm not playing Eugenio Suarez tonight, which might come as a surprise to some people considering he's one of 3 qualified hitters who actually has a 200-plus WRC plus off of left-handed pitching so far this season, and that number actually goes up to 249 on the road, which is pretty crazy to begin with, but especially for someone who calls Great American Ballpark home. Now, there's a 500 BABIP involved there too, so maybe that's already the first deterrent I could throw out there, but I mentioned off the top of the show that maybe I'm not playing Cole Hamels. but I like him as a deterrent to not playing the Reds. And I think that's the key thing here. I mean, the batted ball profile that Cole Hamels has allowed to right-handed bats since he became a member of the Chicago Cubs is absolutely crazy. He's only allowing a 22% fly ball rate. And even when they do hit fly balls, opposing right-handed batters have an 18% infield fly ball rate. So even when they're getting some elevation, it's not dangerous elevation. And that's all led to the fact that Cole Hamels, the guy who's allowed 22 home runs to right-handed batters so far this season, has yet to allow an extra base hit to a right-handed bat as a member of the Chicago Cubs. That's got to come to an end sooner or later, but I feel like there's just guys at third base I'd rather play, like Matt Chapman, Brian Anderson, get a couple of the Atlanta guys in there. I just don't want to pay up for Eugenio Suarez.
Suarez going to cost you 4.8. Matt, what do you think?
I think it's obviously fair to consider fading him against Hamels, but on a small slate, 4-game slate, you need to try and be a little bit different in these tournaments if you're going to try and win one. And that's part of the reason why I like Suarez. You mentioned that Hamels has not given up a lot of hard contact against right-handed bats, but Suarez is not just any right-hand bat. This guy makes more consistently loud contact than almost anybody in the game. He has a 53% hard hit rate over the past 15 days, and he just destroys left-handed pitchers, roughly 10.5 DK points per game against lefties this year. So if you're looking for a bat with upside and potentially low ownership, I think you could do a lot worse than Suarez.
Oh, okay. Garion, huh?
I like it.
I like it. A little bit of pushback there.
Julian would
Garion,
have just agreed with him.
Yeah, he would have been like, yeah, true. But Julian, who's Steve's nephew, is not here with us today.
Yep.
So, Garion, your next thorn, please.
Javier Baez, who ironically enough is tied with the RBI lead in the National League with the aforementioned Eugenio Suarez. And there is a case to be made here that Baez could be a differentiating factor in what is going to be a very popular Cubs stack, because everyone's going to be stacking the left-handed bats in the Cubs lineup. However, I will point out that with 7 left-handed bats, I mean technically 6, but Cole Hamels does bat left-handed, so 7 left-handed bats in that lineup against Anthony DeSclafani tonight, there's enough left-handed bats to already differentiate those Cubs stacks. And Baez, this has really been his worst split so far this season, just a 102 WRC plus against right-handed pitching at home in Chicago so far this season. And DeSclafani, much like Cole Hamels, has had a fantastic month of August. He's been pretty much lights out, and the way to pick on DeSclafani has been very consistent throughout the entire season. It's the left-handed bats, just a 270 WRC plus to right-handed bats so far this season. That drops below 150 when he gets to face right-handed bats away from Great American Ballpark. And even in just the 3-start run he's put up as of late, it's a 150 WOBA with a 57.7% ground ball rate. I just feel like Baez, he could go off any single night, but this does not seem like the ideal matchup for him.
All right, Matt, in keeping in mind that we want to get all of Garion's thorns in here, you got to make your rebuttal quick. But Baez, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I hate to agree with Garion. The guy clearly has everything already.
Wow.
He doesn't need the good DFS takes to go with his beautiful podcast studio. All the memorabilia in the background. The guy's got enough. He doesn't need the good takes. But for me, Baez is a clear fade as well. DeSclafani sneaky good over his last 2 starts. And Baez, he's a notorious lefty killer, pretty pedestrian against right-handers. So, yeah, I will not be playing Baez tonight.
All right, Garion, the Cliff Notes version of your third thorn.
I kind of actually do like the Marlins as a sneaky contrarian stack, but JT Realmuto will not be part of those stacks. It's going to be, I guess, like Starlin Castro, Brian Anderson, maybe even a little Dean in there hitting 5th tonight. I don't know, but Realmuto just does not hit well at home, and he does not hit well against left-handed pitching. The numbers are pretty ugly. The isolated power is also pretty ugly. It's just not a great spot, even with the aforementioned struggle we talked about for Sean Newcomb so far this season.
Matt, I see you nodding. It looks like you just agree with that one as well.
To an extent, the thing with Realmuto to me tonight is that on a 4-game slate, I don't know if anybody else at the catcher position has the same upside as him.
Vic Caratini!
Oh, God. Yeah. So for that reason, I think that makes him viable. If there was a larger slate, I would be much less inclined to play Real Muto. But if he hits to his ability, I don't think there's anybody else on the slate that can match him point for point, which definitely has value for tournaments.
All right. I like you two together in this segment. Thank you, guys. We're going to get your slate-approved picks coming up. For now, here's Pat Mayo with a look ahead to the LA Rams in 2018.
See how there isn't some combustible force within this. What they're trying to do in the history of football hasn't worked before.
I mean, this is like I mentioned earlier that this is similar to what the Seahawks did when they went on their Super Bowl runs.
No.
They have the quarterback on the rookie contract, and they have just players around them that they're paying.
But they didn't just bring in those were guys they drafted and they hit on like third, fourth, fifth round picks for like 2 straight years.
When they started paying, they were able to pay those guys to stay because they didn't have to pay their
They
quarterback.
brought in seeds, and they're just like, it'll be interesting how it works with still a young head coach.
So you're saying bad chemistry potential on the
I'm
Rams?
just saying the chemistry, this offseason free agency trading bonanza team in the NFL has never worked before.
It worked for the Jags D last year.
And but they had so many. It was like more on all of their young draft picks hitting more than,
and then bringing in Cam
more
Wall
than anything.
everything.
If you're going to tell me that the Rams have like second, third, fourth rounders, which they don't have from the Goff trade, were coming up, and those were going to be superstars,
Yeah,
I could buy it more.
But the Rams are all in though.
Yes, and they were playing a different game. One, the Chargers never play and are too cheap to play. But that stadium, they want so much money for those PSI. Imagine going to the Super Bowl as you're selling private seat licenses for a new stadium in Los Angeles.
It'd be boku bucks.
Exactly. That whole privately financed Kroenke, the Walmart money's built like a museum of NFL entertainment that they're building down there that the Chargers get to live on the 13th floor of or something. It's all about the Rams, and it's all about that being successful. And that's what they are trying to do. There's a game within the game that the Rams are playing. They're incredibly talented. I think when it comes time to win the Super Bowl, it won't happen. And it's fair to have that conversation, but I think overall it's an overrated big picture.
So Tim, I know you like the Rams, but you probably like the Niners better. So are you going over or under on their 9.5?
I have 2 words for you: Super Bowl.
Are the Rams?
They are my Super Bowl champions.
They're your Super Bowl champions?
Yes, this is my laying of hands upon them to bless them. They are my Super Bowl champions.
You know what that does, by the way, Tim?
Super Bowl champion number 1. Let's keep track of this.
All right, so that's
because we'll have like 5 of them by the time we're in like week 6.
That's true. And then by the time the playoffs come around, he'll add another 8 to the card. None of them will be the Patriots, and the Patriots will just end up winning. But it sounds like the Rams are an early frontrunner to be most under-cursed team of 2018.
I am not concerned whatsoever about the chemistry. I think they've stopped. Their defense has a chance to be historic. We saw the steps forward with Goff you'd want to see last year. Cooks is a beneficial addition, as you said. They have a marvelous head coach. Gurley is a great running back. They have 2 absolute cupcakes in their division in Arizona and Seattle that they get to absolutely pistol whip. I don't know. I don't see any downside right now. I have the Rams at 14 wins and 2 losses.
14-2?
I think it's the 1 seed in the NFC. I love everything about this team. I mean, this team. I mean, and it's funny because Jeff believes in this theory that you have to develop as a team in stages. And last year was the Rams becoming a playoff team, and that was last year's step. The next step is to go from just being a playoff team to a genuine Super Bowl contender. And so I'm sort of following his logical leaps that he takes with the development of a team, and that's where the Rams are. The Rams are in it to win it, and in my opinion, they will be winning it in Atlanta.
Well, the big thing is there's 2 things to watch out for when you see progressions from teams. It is, one, did that team take a huge leap forward? And then a lot of the times they generally take a little step back. They brought in all these new players, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that it's not really going to be a similar defense whatsoever. So it's not really much of the same team. On offense it will be, but on defense it won't be.
It's gotten better, and the defensive coordinator, Wade Phillips, has proven as a D coordinator to be incredibly savvy and incredibly. I mean, he's the assistant head coach in charge of the defense.
Yeah, you watch the Rams games, and they're on defense, and McVay's not even watching.
Yeah, he's out like having a cig.
He's
that's
just
fine.
no, that's
Well,
fine
that's
because he
what
trusts
they
Wade Phillips and he's a young guy and he know McVay's going to be an expert at what he's an
Hey,
expert at,
one of the
and
big-
not
one
pretend
of the-
to be a defensive
One of
expert.
the biggest things that you can know is know what you don't know and
Yeah.
trust someone better to do it for you.
Absolutely, and I will pick the over 9.5, but I'm throwing cold water on this team winning a championship.
I'm going to take an under because they're way too Andrew cursed at this point. Bad news.
But he's got 14. They can still get to 10.
I don't know. I don't know. If they get to 2
I
at
don't
this
see
point.
what could go wrong.
Oh!
I don't see what could go wrong.
All right.
All right, we're going to head north of the border now for more football talk. It's CFL time with Jeff Ulrich, the one and only.
Yeah, we're looking at CFL storylines, Jeff. So is Mike Riley worth the price tag of 12.1 tonight?
Oh, we shed the Reed weight finally. I'm glad we made that decision.
Oh, thank God.
Good job, producers. But yeah, I mean, looking at quarterback for the CFL tonight, I mean, Mike Riley, obviously the Eskimos on like a historic pace, like 50 touchdowns. I still don't think I'd pay up for him. I mean, Hamilton's actually a pretty tough opponent. The Eskimos are underdogs in this game. I would actually fade Riley on this slate personally. I like going down to Antonio Pipkin. We made fun of him last week at some point, I think. He's 7,100, but he actually played pretty well, and he's going up against the Argonauts, a bit of an easier opponent. 7,100, this guy just does not have to do much. I just feel like paying up for Mike Riley in this spot, he's become so expensive. I think we go with the cheap quarterback here, so.
One question in, this segment is already 10 times better without Reed.
Yeah.
It's so much better.
So much better.
Explain to me why or why not, though, stacking these Stampeders is the way to go tonight.
I mean, again, with the Stampeders, they're just too expensive for me. And they actually have a tough opponent, again, Winnipeg. So, you know, this slate, you have 2 or 3 games that are very similar point totals. This one actually, Calgary and Winnipeg has one of the lowest on the slate. I would rather go and stack the Tiger Cats, quite frankly. They're favorites at home over the Eskimos. They got some Ring of Honor thing going on, so there's all these narratives. You can get their running back for pretty cheap. He's 7,100. You can take one of their high-end wide receivers like Brandon Banks, who's just been tearing it up. And they're in a really good spot in the highest point total game. They have the highest implied team total of anyone on this slate, I believe, or it's one of the highest, first or second. So I like going with the Tiger Cats. You don't necessarily have to take their quarterback because he's expensive too, but taking their running back, taking their wide receiver, and then cherry picking some value plays from the other games. I would prefer to fade the Stampeders if I was putting together a lineup personally.
Well, speaking of value plays,
Great segue.
who's the best value play in Canada, Jeff?
In Canada, I mean, right now, I go back to the guy I talked about last week, the Darius Bowman. I mean, the former Eskimo. He's still getting acclimatized, and you can pair him with Pipkin for like nothing. He's 46 or 40. He's 4,600 on the slate. He had a couple receptions. Again, he's 2 years ago. This guy put up like a historic wide receiver season. He's bounced around a couple teams. He got cut, but he's in a place. There's just not that much more talent on the Montreal Alouettes. So pairing him with Pipkin, it gives you a really good value stack. And like I said, you could go and take some of those higher end Hamilton Tiger Cats if that's the way you want to go. That's the way I like to go. Shaq Evans is another name I'll throw out. Former New York Jet, drafted by the Jets. He's catching on with Saskatchewan. Popped for like a really nice game last week, and you know, Saskatchewan's played well. Their quarterback's been playing well. So Shaq Evans is another value play at wide receiver.
Hey, how about your slate-approved pick for tonight?
I'm going with Alex Green, the guy I already mentioned, but some people might actually remember Alex Green, former member of the Green Bay Packers. Pretty sure I rostered him like in an NFL league at some point. He might have saved me like on a bye week or something, but this guy's got some talent, had some injury issues. You know, he's playing in Hamilton now. He used to be from Hawaii, but he's picked it up. He's got 4 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Like I said, I like the Ticats offense. So Alex Green, 7,100. That'd be my lock.
All right, Jeff, an amazing segment without Reed.
Great to see you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. All right, guys, time for Alex Jankowski to convince us why stacking is a home run.
It's time to start thinking about strategy when it comes to drafting hitters in the MLB. Today we're going to focus on a basic strategic principle, stacking. If you've played football on DraftKings before, you're likely familiar with the concept. But for those who aren't, stacking is when you construct your roster to include several players from the same team. This could be because the team is doing really well or is in a prime matchup, or maybe it's just your favorite team and you want another reason to root for them. Regardless of the reason, many of which we'll dive into throughout the year, stacking is a must when it comes to DFS baseball because it's the best way to fully capitalize on any run-scoring play. An RBI single scores 5 DK points for the hitter, 3 for the hit and 2 for the run it bats in. The base runner also earns 2 DK points for the run he scores, and that doesn't include the points he accrued when he reached base. If a team puts up multiple runs in an inning and you had exposure to the 4 hitters who are responsible for the runs and the RBI, that, my friends, is a recipe for success.
We are back to our teeny tiny 4-game baseball slate to wrap up the evening. Gary and Thorne, Matt LaMarca, they're here to bring it home.
So buckle up, let's dive into Chase or Fade, aka agree or disagree with the following statements. Matt, chase or fade this. The A's are the top stack tonight.
I'm actually going to fade that. I prefer the Braves. We've talked a lot about Acuna. You know, we've mentioned the horrendous pitching situation that's going to be going on in Miami with, you know, a starter likely going 3 or 4 innings and then handing it off to a terrible bullpen. I really think that the Braves are in just a really, really nice spot tonight to put up a huge run total.
Gary, and what about you? What are you doing with the A's? Do you think they're the top stack?
No, I'm going to have to fade this too. I like Atlanta more and I like Chicago more. And I think one of the big reasons for that is on a slate specifically designed like this, and I don't necessarily mean the amount of games, I just mean the caliber of starting pitchers, bullpen information might be more important than the actual starting matchups. And the Twins just have kind of quietly had a decent bullpen in the month of August, especially when you directly compare their bullpen to that of the Cincinnati Reds and the Miami Marlins. So I think the Cubs against DeSclafani, again, 6 left-handed bats in that lineup, not counting the pitcher Cole Hamels, 2.7 home runs per 9 to lefties so far this season, and that's including this nice little 3-game run he's had as of late. So I think there's a lot of ways you can kind of stack Atlanta and Chicago, and they're pretty cost-effective too.
All right, our sweatometer appears to be warming up. Actually, it was completely frozen. I'm going to need you two to really pick this up here. Next up, Cubs lefties will rack up the DK points against Anthony DeSclafani. Garion, chasing or fading?
I'm chasing this. I screamed Vic Caratini's name, which is not something I really thought I would ever do. So on a night where I actually think this guy might be a viable play, yes, I 100% think that the Cubs lefties are going to do some damage tonight. I think the winds are blowing out at Wrigley too the last time I checked, so that helps everyone involved.
Matt, what are you going to do here, chase or fade?
I'm going the opposite direction. I'm fading the Cubs. I actually have some interest in rostering DeSclafani as a pitching target tonight at potentially low ownership. If you look at his numbers over his past 2 starts, they're incredible, particularly his StatCast data. He's allowed a batted ball distance of just 163 feet, which is a decrease of over 50 feet when compared to his 12-month average. He's getting outside the bandbox, known as the Great American Ballpark. I really like DeSclafani if you're looking for a contrarian pitching target tonight.
You're dropping StatCast era statistics on us. Garen, you got nothing for that.
I'm giving you ballpark factors.
Yeah.
I'm giving you ground ball rates.
The
Come
wind,
on.
The wind is blowing out. I know. I'm just
It's
trying to
blowing
get you
out.
guys fighting each other. That's all.
He's being really difficult, honestly.
I am. I'm in a bad mood today.
You are not. You're in a great mood, as always. Finally, Matt, stacking against Cole Hamels tonight is a smart play. Chase or fade?
I'm going to chase this. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. The Reds will probably have the lowest ownership as a team on today's slate. And this is still baseball, right? You know, good hitters make out 70% of the time. Great pitchers get roughed up now and then. So anytime you can get an ownership edge on a 4-game slate, I think you should take advantage of it. I think that if you look at the average ownership between the low dollar contests and the high dollar contests, I bet you more people in those high contests are targeting the Reds and looking to embrace some of the volatility that happens in baseball. So, yeah, I like the idea of rostering against Hamels. I also like the idea of rostering Hamels. I'm going to do both.
Okay, so, Garion, maybe chase or fade both of those things. Are you going to stack the Reds against Cole Hamels? Are you going to roster Hamels? Chase or fade both?
I guess I'm fading both. I mean, again, I think my exposure to this game will mainly be Chicago Cub bats. I don't necessarily like this spot enough for Hamels. but I'm still not willing to stack against him, I guess is the key term. Like, I really already said I wasn't playing, obviously, the best possible red bat you could play in Eugenio Suarez. And when you go through the rest of this lineup, he's the only guy on their team who has a 200-plus isolated power with at least 30 plate appearances against left-handed pitching so far this season. Like, Phillip Ervin's been all right, but do I really want to play, like, first baseman Tucker Barnhart tonight? Like, this lineup gets pretty thin pretty fast. So I get the contrarian thing. I get trying to attack a low ownership spot, but sometimes I think you just got to go with what the numbers tell you.
Matt's had a lot of the contrarian play picks tonight. Do you have like a most contrarian pick, Garion?
Well, like I said, I do kind of like stacking the Marlins at a certain point. I don't know how heavy I would go with that, but Sean Newcomb's been awful. And if you look at his numbers against right-handed batters specifically since the beginning of July, a 384 WOBA and just a 13.2% strikeout rate. So, you know, Starlin Castro. Brian Anderson is probably the guy I'm most locked in on just because he does have some nice numbers against left-handed pitching so far this season. But, you know, you've got weird bats in this lineup. Austin Dean, again, is hitting fifth. Like, any guy hitting fifth against a bad pitcher or a pitcher who's been bad lately for, I think, $3,400, $3,200. If you want to pay up to get Acuna, Dean's the kind of guy you got to put into your lineup tonight.
Stacking without
stack the
JT Realmuto, though, right?
No.
Stack the Marlins, but not their best player.
Not Realmuto.
Matt, what do you think? Yeah.
At Marlins Park.
Yeah, I actually really like the call of stacking the Marlins. I just don't know how you do it without Realmuto. I mean, he's the only guy on their team right now that I feel like is a bona fide major leaguer. So
yeah, and only 4 games tonight, Garion. All right, guys, home run watch time. Who is a lock to go yard tonight, Matt?
I've gotten a lot of contrarian picks. This one's going to be pretty chalky. Matt Chapman for the A's. They have the highest implied team total on the board, and he's just been smoking the ball recently. I think that he goes yard tonight.
What about you, Garion?
I'm going to say Anthony Rizzo, but man, after this conversation, I really want to say Vic Caratini.
We're helping you work
Do
this
it, man.
out,
Come
you know.
on, do it.
Yeah. All right, well, maybe finally hit us with those slate-approved picks. Maybe get a slate-approved pick guy there.
Chance.
So who are you rostering no matter what, Garion?
I think no matter what, I'm going to have Kyle Schwarber in my lineups tonight. I just think the price point is too good to ignore considering the numbers we've seen left-handed batters put up against DeSclafani.
All right, Matt, what about you?
I'm going with all the Braves, but particularly Acuna. I know that's not a huge limb to be out on since he's the most expensive bat on the slate, but there's just no way I'm not having that guy in my lineup tonight.
All right, good stuff, guys. Thanks so much. Enjoy the 4-game slate. Good times today. It's only Thursday. Jessie, did you learn anything?
It's only Thursday. All right, bye,
I
guys.
know, right?
Yeah. You're really
See you
having
guys.
a tough time right there. Try to Google something.
I am.
Do you need an adult? Did I learn anything today? Let's see. I learned that when it comes to the Canadian Football League, Jeff is our guy, and he actually feels like he wants to just run that segment by himself. He doesn't need Reed. He actively doesn't want Reed on that segment. So that's a big thing I learned. What about you? Did you?
Blake Snell does not want to be called Stinky Peterson. So Odell Beckham Jr.
You weren't listening very well then. It's not that he said he didn't want to be called it. It's that he said he just didn't think it was funny.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be called it because he doesn't think it's funny. And he doesn't think he looks anything like him.
That's true.
I don't know, though. I Google imaged it. And
You did?
Stinky Peterson, a little like Blake Snell. Blake Snell, a little like Stinky Peterson.
Oh, all right.
Odell Beckham Jr. might have been onto something here.
With that.
But we want to have Blake Snell back, so I'll never call him that.
Yeah, with that, that's all the time we have. This has been The Sweat. I'm Jessie Coffield. He was Emerson Lotzia. The show will be back tomorrow night at 6, and we'll be back on Monday.